Sales Team 1 is known for having arguments within the team. You never listen. What's your problem? Why should I be expected to listen to a stupid idea like that? Every meeting is filled with arguments like this. The members of the team do not even eat lunch together. Smith, the team leader, has had enough and is determined to change things for the better. Whether it's family or work, being happy is the most important thing. Stop arguing with each other and respect each other's opinions. Finally, we are now a harmonious team. Surely they'll work better now. Wait a minute. What's wrong with this month's sales? Why are they so low?
Hello, I'm Luke from IGM. There are harmonious teams that seem to always get along, and there are teams where the members are at each other's throats. If asked which team produces the best results, 9 out of 10 would say the first team. So what's wrong with the team in the scenario? World-renowned HDR expert Brian Cole-Miller says the answer lies in organizational behavior theory. An organization that has good teamwork goes through 4 stages. According to this theory, the first stage is the forming period, where members familiarize themselves with their roles and organizational goals, and leaders learn more about leadership. The next stage is the storming period, where conflict is constantly experienced between team members due to differences in opinions. The third stage is the norming period, where all differences are settled and a systematic work process is decided upon. The last stage, where all the conflict has been eliminated, mutual dependency is developed, and productivity increases, is called the performing period. In the second stage, the storming period, the organization is in a mix of conflict and arguments. It is under those circumstances where a team must determine and realize what work style suits them best. It's no exaggeration to say that a team's future is decided by how the storming period is dealt with. But what if a leader doesn't like seeing all of this conflict and decides to suppress it? The team will forever be stuck in the storming period, never make its way to the norming period. According to Miller, since the team doesn't learn to collaborate with each other during this stage, positive team results will never be realized. The need to maintain harmony actually hampers communication. Thus, it's important for a leader to understand whether a team is in the storming period or not, regardless of whether conflicts and arguments happen. In other words, it's important to know if the team is really in harmony or if they're just pretending to be. So what are some signs of a team pretending to be harmonious? The first sign is when only pretentious compliments are made and no real feedback is given. Normally, leaders try to create an environment where everyone has a positive mindset and encourages each other by taking initiative and leading by example. They force themselves to find something good to say about someone. But the problem with this type of atmosphere is that it will be difficult for the leader to point out faults that are made by the employees. This will lead to a situation where the leader will only compliment the one good thing that the employee did well, instead of criticizing the 9 things that the person did wrong. In such a case, instead of reflecting on their mistake, the employee would reject the feedback and be offended. The employee might think, John made a similar mistake but wasn't criticized. In fact, he was complimented. So why me? If this happens, employability will not improve, as well as his or her productivity. So what must be done to prevent something like this from happening? Instead of placing emphasis on saying only positive things, it's important to find a way for employees to accept negative feedback in an optimistic way. A leader could start by saying something like, "We're all working hard to succeed, so please don't be offended by what I'm about to say." Also, add feedback that can be expanded upon, like, "Let's try to find a solution for this together." When this is done, the employee being given feedback will think, "I'm being told this because I'm cared for and valued," and react positively. The second sign is when actions are not planned out carefully but done at the spur of the moment. Being oppressive and reckless in forcing a positive atmosphere will only make employees overly optimistic about work. Employees will give it little thought and think things like, "Let's just go for it," or "Everything's going to be all right." At first glance, this sounds like a healthy, driven company, but what if we take a closer look? Employees who are accustomed to this type of environment neglect to follow procedures when working. Most of them simply put things into action and try to address the problems as they occur. Saying something negative such as, "We should carefully think this over," or "We may need to completely redo this," would only result in a leader being called a pessimist. Obviously, a project conducted under these circumstances would result in a high percentage of it failing. In order to prevent this type of false positivity, leaders must change their attitude. A leader must show that they are willing to accept any opinion, regardless of how negative it is. Also, they must refrain from being overly positive. For example, during the planning stage of a project, it might help to create a rule that sets the number of meetings that need to be held for the project to progress. In addition, it might also be helpful to have a devil's advocate for all projects whose sole purpose is to offer opposing opinions. The third sign is when employees simply agree with the leader despite having opposing opinions. When the employees notice the leader is trying to create a positive environment, they have the tendency to place all responsibility and decision-making onto the leader. By simply agreeing to what the leader says, all conflict can be avoided. The problem is that this situation might give the impression of the team having total respect and confidence towards the leader. However, this type of team is like a runaway train with no brakes. Even if the leader makes the wrong choice, there's nothing to stop the decision from being made. And if the project does fail, employees will simply avoid responsibility by saying, "I knew it wouldn't work." In order to avoid situations like this, leaders must be conscious of the fact that employees might blindly agree to what the leader says. So instead of saying things like, "This idea looks good," a leader should try to keep his or her opinions to themselves and listen to what the employees have to say. Also, having a person that the team members are comfortable in sharing their opinions with as a meeting facilitator might make the meeting more productive. Let's wrap up. According to research, a small amount of conflict within an organization actually benefits overall productivity. So regardless of how much leaders hate to see employees in conflict, trying to suppress these arguments is not the answer. Doing so will only create an underperforming organization where its members aren't honest about their feelings. Does your organization replace constructive feedback with pretentious compliments, start projects without proper planning or preparation, and simply agree with what the leader says? If so, it's time to consider whether or not you're a leader who suppresses conflict and openness within the organization.